I'm Holly Piergiovanni, Professor of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering.
I'm Lauren Anderson, Associate Professor of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering and a member of Lafayette's class of 2004. So Polly, we're celebrating 50 years of coeducation at Lafayette, and a lot of things have changed for women in engineering and women in STEM more broadly. So can you tell us a little bit about how things are different? What was your experience like, and how do you see things changing?
So as an undergraduate, in chemical engineering, there has historically been more female students than in the other branches. So there were a group of us in engineering that I hung out with, probably 5 females in a class of 35 or so. And they were my friends. The girls in the dorm were not engineers and couldn't really relate to all the work I was doing and why I would do that, because actually they were all expecting to get married and just go on from there. So it was a little different, but within the classroom, I was accepted among my peers. You know, there was no differentiation between the male students and the female students. In grad school, it was a little different because I was the only female in the whole class. And so all the professors knew my name. And so anytime they'd have a question, they'd say, okay, and what's the answer? Miss Robinson. And so every time it wasn't a mean picking on, it was just, they knew who I was and they didn't know the sea of white males that was there. So that was a little different, but still I was always felt supported, and it was a good experience.
That's great. I think that's what happens at Lafayette too. Wouldn't you say that, you know, we know our students' names? That's how I felt as a student here. I liked being a student in engineering here, never really felt it as different. So I think just like you described, I had a similar experience.
So how do you see, since you were a student here to now, how do you think things have changed for students in engineering?
So, you know, as I said, it never felt unusual to be a woman in my engineering classes. What was different is there weren't many female faculty. So of course I had you as one of my professors, but in chemical engineering, you were the only female faculty member at the time in Chemi. And you know, there were 4 female faculty within engineering, and now we have 12. So to triple the amount of female faculty, it changes how you feel as a student, right? You have somebody to look up to be the role model, and it normalizes that conversation we have all the time about work-life balance, right? And you know, it really has always influenced me how you talk about your family and have pictures of your kids and Legos on your desk that your kids made. But you know, being a student, and especially now at Lafayette, we still have gender parity with our engineering students, and I think women feel very comfortable in our classes, and you know, research opportunities are increasing. That's something that with recent funding and the Claire Booth Luce Research Scholars Program, more women have opportunities to get involved now than when I was here. I know, you know, there was still the Excel Scholars Program, but it was very competitive and it was limited. And so I did a research experience at Georgia Tech at the time, and that's what, you know, prompted me to go to graduate school. If I didn't have that, I don't know that I would have gone to graduate school. And so now I think, you know, we see nationally more women are going to graduate school in engineering and getting PhDs. And I think that's fantastic. And I think here at Lafayette, the way we prioritize, you know, faculty interaction and working together and working on research projects with our students, I think that the shift changes are happening. I think we'll see, and it's so slow though, right? Growth is so slow. It takes decades to realize, you know, to go from 4 faculty to 12, or to go from being the only student that the professors know your name to now we know all of our students. So it takes time, but I think there's been a lot of positive changes. So how have things changed for you from the faculty perspective?
So that it's been a very slow change. So if you'd ask me, you know, year to year, I'd say it hasn't changed. But if you look over the 30 years that I've been here, there have been some changes, because like you said, when I came, I was the only one, and even knowing how to dress, I had to look at the secretaries, and I figured I better dress a little bit nicer than the secretaries did, because all the men wore, back then, a suit and tie. I mean, that's what they taught in, and I wasn't gonna wear a suit and tie, so figuring out the dress code was one thing. And then, so Becky Rosenbauer turned out to be the second woman who came on campus. I forget what her exact title was, but she and I became very close friends. And that leads to the other thing that's changed is we now have a maternity leave policy, because Becky and I happened to have our first child about 3 months apart, and there was no maternity leave policy. There was a disability. And so after I had my son, I had 6 weeks of disability. And Becky taught my class, my 3 classes for me for those 6 weeks, 3 sections of Fortran. So it was real easy for her to step in. But then after 6 weeks, I had to come back and finish the semester.
Not ready to come back after 6 weeks.
He was 8.5 pounds, so I was just not ready to do that. And fortunately, there weren't a lot of women students in the restroom because I needed them to cry or whatever because I wasn't ready.
So we're here in Leopard Works, and I know you teach in here. So what do you love most about teaching, and has your teaching changed over the years?
Yes, my teaching has really changed, and part of it is because of facilities like this. Because 30 years ago, I taught Fortran on a chalkboard because there weren't computers for each student to sit in front of one. And right now, everything I teach is pretty much hands-on. So Leopard Works is a great facility for having the students build things or create things and take data within the classroom. So my teaching has become much more hands-on. Always at Lafayette, we have the opportunity for one-on-one interaction in the classrooms.
Yeah, that's the great part. I enjoy that too. I mean, I think working with the students and even getting to know them in the research labs and seeing them grow and evolve and seeing when students kind of find their strengths. I always enjoy that moment when they realize that they can do something that they didn't think they can do. I love that, because we're all learning.
When the light bulb goes on and they finally understand something. It's very exciting.
Yeah. Well, Polly, it's been really nice talking to you today, and I just want to say thank you for being a supportive colleague, being my professor, over the years, and just modeling what it's like to be a professional, faculty member, to be a mom, to be a wife, and balance all those roles. I think that's been an inspiration to me personally, and hopefully we can continue, and I can pass that down to generations, and we can continue to improve what it's like for women at Lafayette. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, for your support as our department head. It's really been appreciated, and you brought on some young women faculty that I hope to see flourish in the next few years.
Thank you.